Welcome to this webinar called Maximizing Business Success in an Uncertain World with Real-Time Analytics by Enterprise Strategy Group, a tech target company. I'm Stephen Catanzano, Senior Analyst at Enterprise Strategy Group, and today I'm joined by Dominic Sartorio, Senior Vice President of Products at Actian. Today we will discuss the Actian Avalanche Cloud Platform and how it delivers real-time analytics to drive responsive decision-making. Welcome, Dominic. For those who may not know you or Actian, would you kindly tell us a bit about yourself and Actian?
My pleasure, and thanks for having me, Stephen. Right, so I'm head of products for Actian. I've had a long background, over 20 years in data management, integration, and analytics, and joined Actian about a year ago, and it's been an amazing ride, certainly. Actian has been around for a long time. Started as Ingress, the one of the early relational databases. Of course, has grown and evolved and added additional products to our portfolio over time. And so now Actian has a broad portfolio of transactional, analytical databases, as well as integration, data quality, and other data management services. In the last few years, we've been bringing it all together into a single cloud native data platform called Avalanche. So it's a single environment, single user experience where you can stand up your own data analytics, including connecting to sources, authoring your own data pipelines, ensuring quality and privacy, hosting data warehouse instances and transactional database instances to support a wide variety of analytic use cases, including traditional business intelligence, analytics embedded within data applications, and other form factors as well are supported. So Avalanche so far has enjoyed great adoption in the market, and so hence why it's been an exciting ride here since I joined.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Dominic. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I've talked with a lot of companies about the importance of data analytics for decision making, but Actian seems to be going further by addressing the need for agility to deal with an uncertain world. So, at a macro level, we know just in the past few years we have dealt with the pandemic, supply chains issues, and many other macro challenges. And I'm sure at a micro level, companies deal with disruptions every day. Could you share your thoughts on the need for greater agility in companies?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you said it. We're in a new normal, and a lot of big and unpredictable changes have happened and continue to happen globally, starting from the pandemic and associated health restrictions that radically changed consumer behavior, going from buying in person to online and buying different mixes of products and services. Then you had supply chain shocks and inflation, which affected many organizations from the other direction, their input costs, costs of doing business, concerns, what can we pass on to our customers. You had geopolitical unrest in certain parts of the world, like war in the Ukraine, energy shortages, social and political unrest, even domestically. All of that has conspired to create a lot of uncertainty where significant things can happen that it can affect entire organization and the customers they serve, and they're unpredictable. There's no ML model that could have adequately predicted how consumers will behave in response to a pandemic, for example. So, in order to be more agile and resilient, organizations have had to double down on analytics of a more real-time nature, that data of what's happening to your consumers and how different stakeholders in your ecosystem are behaving and behavior changes has to come to your frontline workers. So not your traditional BI where you're looking at last night's batch run or last week's batch run, but real-time, near real-time data that's accessible to your frontline workers in a context where they can make sense of it and act on it. Normally that means embedded within the applications they're used to using or whatever their workflow is. So that is where a lot of investment has been happening recently, because organizations that have already been doing this and are already capable of it have, frankly, they've been thriving. They're able to react in near real time to changes, and it shows to their customers. They engender greater customer loyalty because they have that much better responsiveness to their needs. And organizations that aren't capable of this, by the time they get around to seeing these behavior changes, it's days, weeks too late, and they may have already lost market share to the competitors who do.
Yeah, I certainly agree with the new normal concept. The world has certainly changed over the
Mhm.
past couple of years. And organizations need to think about making decisions a lot faster
Mhm.
to react quicker to all the changes that are happening. On one side, we have a massive increase in the sources and volumes of data consumed by organizations, and on the other, a considerable increase in the number of data users. So that
Mhm.
side of it is growing as well. Can you provide sort of an overview of Actian Avalanche Cloud Platform and how you address this growth challenge as well?
Yeah, definitely. So, as I mentioned earlier, Actian is an all-in-one set of services designed to help teams that are embedded within business functions or lines of business or application teams looking to embed analytics within an application to get going quickly on their own. So you're not gated by central teams of data warehouse staff or data engineers who are often overwhelmed by just the flood of requests that they're getting from all parts of the organization. So the goal is you have a single analyst friendly user experience where you can start by connecting to your sources, very easily building the pipelines you need or loading the data you need into data warehouse instances that can be distinct and unique to each of those teams. And then they can manage that data analytics workload on their own. We also support embedding that analytics in a variety of ways. You can certainly point your favorite traditional BI tools to it, but everything is also API driven. So if you're embedding within an application, both the design time of structuring data pipelines and standing up an analytics schema, as well as the runtime, you're issuing queries and managing that workload can be done programmatically. So in that way, you can embed analytics in a lot of different form factors, applications embedded within various devices, and so on. So we find that's the way the world of analytics is going. You want to empower different categories of data consumers to be self-service, from traditional BI analysts to application developers to edge uh, and machine learning modeling and so on. So that really is what Avalanche is designed for, to help that agility through self-service across a lot of different consumption patterns.
That's great. Yeah, a single platform for all of what someone needs to do on analytics, I think, is really helpful, especially as you mentioned, more companies need to catch up with the leaders who are moving very fast
Mhm.
in this space and creating competitive advantages. At
That's right.
Enterprise Strategy Group, we did an economic validation of the Avalanche platform and also found that companies can lower their costs by 20 to 70% while increasing the speed of their data analysis by over 90%.
Right.
When you think about the platform, how challenging is it for people to move to the Avalanche platform, and do they start to see benefits of moving right away?
Yes, they do. And that ESG report, the benefits come essentially in two categories. One is just the raw performance of Avalanche itself. We have a variety of patented technologies under the covers that give us a price performance benefit that's way better compared to other leading cloud data warehouses out there. Anywhere from 2 to 6 times faster in the TPC benchmarks. And we also have the ability to update a data set in real time without affecting downstream query performance. So that's another net benefit. But that's just the raw performance of the platform itself. Now, in addition to that, just the overall cost of operating the platform, and that includes the time and effort of just managing the environment and getting going with it, because of the self-service nature of it, and the fact that all these various services like the analytic engine, the integration services, and so on, all integrated in one experience, makes it a lot easier for a team to get going and to manage and maintain the assets that they've authored in their own environment. So all of that together lowers dramatically the cost of ownership, and it's easy to get started. There are data loading utilities, migration utilities. If you have queries running as inside another engine as user-defined functions, those are generally supported as long as it's ANSI SQL compliant. So moving over from another solution is also quite easy to do. We've had some customers get going in a matter of days, getting production off of some other engine that they've been running their analytics on. So it's easy to get going quickly. And once you get there, you realize very good cost of ownership, both because the the platform itself performs better, and the overall cost of ownership of managing, maintaining is much lower as well.
Great. Yeah, we also hear a lot about data quality with data governance and privacy. Those are
Mhm.
all top of mind for IT leaders. How is Actian addressing these in the platform?
Yeah, those are table stakes, right? So let's start with quality. Garbage in, garbage out. You got bad data coming in and you're analyzing that. You're bound to draw wrong conclusions based on what you see. So fortunately, we have capabilities there that can help. You can profile data in your various data sources or files you're uploading to make sure it's good data before you load it in. You can also get a sense of how do I need to modify this data to clean it, and those can be distinct steps in a data pipeline. And you can then operationalize that as you schedule and run that pipeline over time. So that capability is there. And for privacy, we have several capabilities. Of course, we have the ability to encrypt data at rest, and customers can bring their own keys. You can encrypt per schema, per table, per column. So there's various levels of granularity that we support. We also support dynamic masking. So often a data set is shared across very many teams. So you may encrypt it at rest, but then depending who the user is or what role they have, there's different data they should be able to see in order they do their jobs, and then the rest of it is masked or redacted in some way. So that dynamic masking, depending on the role and the permissions of, of who's connecting, can then also determine what they see. So those are usually the capabilities you need in order to in order to implement what you need to comply with regulations such as GDPR, because then you'll be able to put the necessary controls in place that sensitive data is protected or data is being properly de-identified before being used by analysts.
Great. Yeah. And another area too is insights. So we did a recent survey and we asked IT leaders about data insights, and we found that 73% of the respondents said that organizations take days or weeks to gain insights from data, and another 28% reported insights can take months. These numbers are improving, but most companies don't yet have real-time analytics for decision making. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on how Actian can help these data-driven companies to reach that data, that real-time stage faster?
Yeah, those organizations probably struggling to survive instead of thriving in the new normal because, well, think about it. If you had during in the year 2020 and different regions were locking down, and if you're a retailer relying on physical store presence, or you're a service provider providing in-person services, and you are relying on data that's weeks or months old, you didn't do well in the pandemic. So you need to be able to see same day essentially, and you got to get that data in front of your frontline workers, the decision makers who are deciding, okay, what am I going to do with my brick and mortar storefronts? What am I going to do for my employees who have to provide services in person? What am I going to do in terms of what products, what goods and services are going to be, or am I going to make available in that particular region? You need to get those insights in the hands of decision makers, and they aren't necessarily your business intelligence staff. Those are your product managers, your inventory managers, your store managers. They need to get that data nearly same day in order to decide, okay, what am I going to do today to respond to this new world that I'm living in? So as I said earlier, if you had that data already stood up, and you had that data already embedded within the various environments and applications that those frontline workers see, then you get those insights same day. But even if you weren't already an Avalanche customer, just the ability to construct a pipeline and stand up a warehouse with the relevant data within the same experience, you can get going with Avalanche again in a matter of days. And then from that point forward, same day, you'll have those kinds of insights. So that really is the bar, frankly. And for those organizations who said it takes many weeks or months, they should think about, okay, is that good enough for my customers and my operation given the new normal? And if you look in the mirror and decide, no, that can't possibly be good enough, then consider what changes do you need to make in terms of tools and what and how you're empowering your organization to leverage those tools to get the insights they need much more quickly.
Yeah, it's very true. And just when you think about an organizational change, as a company becomes more data driven, there's probably organizational challenges in addition to the technical side. And what are your thoughts on sort of the culture that needs to be developed in a company to get serious about, being data driven, getting to real time insights, and being able to react to the things happening in the new normal?
Yeah, great question. And for many of our customers, that's where we've done more of the work to help their leadership to drive the culture change that's necessary. Because it has to be a culture of self-service and data literacy within the teams who are ultimately consuming that data. Um, if you have a culture that's rooted in the past, like traditional data warehousing from the 1990s or early 2000s, where you have a central data warehouse organization, where you have a central team of data architects or engineers, and a central team of ETL engineers. And in that traditional model, it could take months to define the schemas in your data warehouse because you took the time to try to anticipate what are all the different analytic models and use cases that are out there. So let's model that. And then let's spend more months authoring the complex ETL jobs so you can populate those schemas on a nightly basis or a weekly basis. That's your traditional view of the world. That does not work now. So I think maybe some of the folks who answered the survey saying it takes months to get insights is because that's their operating model today. They have to submit their request for a new schema or a new data set to a central team, and it takes months to change manage that in their data warehouse and author new ETL jobs, et cetera. It's just not going to cut it. What you'd rather do is enable the individual downstream teams to be self-service, to be able to connect to whatever data sources on their own. And often it's those data sources or applications that they're already using, like the marketing and sales teams are already using Salesforce or ServiceNow or whatever it is. They know what data they need. Let them connect and have access, and then give them the tools so they can build out their own pipelines and keep their own analytics schemas up to date, and let them define those schemas. They know what their analytics use cases are. Let them do it. So it doesn't mean the central team is going away. The central team plays a role of standing up those tools, something like Avalanche. They can act as a competency center to provide advice when it's needed. But you really want to empower those consuming teams to self-serve. And that does mean they need to feel that accountability. They can't just throw a request over the wall anymore. Do it yourself. Take it upon yourself. My experience is most of those teams want to. They don't want to have to wait on some other team to provide what they ask for. They want to be masters of their own destiny, but they don't have the tools, or the tools are too complicated for them to use. Most of them are not going to be deep technical engineers who can author complex ETL jobs. So they need the tools, and they need a little bit of guidance on hey, just make sure I know what I need to do so I don't run afoul of privacy regulations or something like that. So a little bit of enablement can go a long way. So we
Right.
do see architectures out there like data mesh and data fabric come up that are intended to help facilitate that kind of self-service. And we are adherents to that. So we've had some customers successfully start implementing data mesh principles using Avalanche because it facilitates that kind of self-service.
Nice. Yeah. Would you mind maybe sharing a couple of examples of customers and how they're using the platform?
Yeah, I can, off the top of my head, I can think of some customers going back to the theme of real time and getting insights in the moment, which are referenceable and I can speak to. So one customer is PredictX. They are a SaaS application vendor, and their application is travel and expense management. And their customers are big employers like Google, big banks, big healthcare providers, where you have hundreds of thousands of employees who are going to travel and they're going to have expenses. And during the pandemic, many of those employees were working at home, of course. And The nature of their expenses they were submitting changed very dramatically. It was no more travel, but they were buying equipment for their home offices. They were upgrading their internet service, whatever the case may be. So PredictX's customers had the problem of, how do we make sure that this content is, or these expenses are not fraudulent in some way, and we're aligning with corporate policies, and we could provide in the moment guidance to approvers and spend management and finance folks, so they keep an eye on the overall trend of expenses, and are they in compliance or not. Have the application itself recommend, for example, whether something should be approved or not. So PredictX needed to build in that kind of embedded analytics to provide that kind of guidance. So they did that with Avalanche, and Avalanche is a backend that they use, and they embedded that kind of analytics into their application. Another good customer that comes to mind is Sheets. Now, Sheets is a chain of consumer retail stores, mostly in the Mid-Atlantic of the United States, mostly in the eastern half of the country. So you can imagine during the pandemic, suddenly you had a lot of people who used to visit those convenience stores are no longer visiting, but you may have had different people who were coming in. So emergency response folks, healthcare workers, and anybody who was considered critical staff, and they were going to come into those convenience outlets and buy a completely different mix of products, as you might imagine. So they used our technology to be able to provide real-time data directly to store managers. So it wasn't like some back office analyst who was looking at purchasing trends, but to provide these analytic insights embedded within the applications that store managers were using, so they could directly monitor what is the flow of traffic of people coming into stores by region, by state, by county, etc. What is the mix of products that we're buying? Let's correlate that with our supply chain to make sure of availability of product, and be able to then recommend on a day-to-day basis, what do we stock our shelves with, and what's the optimal price to set them at. So they were able to do that with our technology. So they were the ones who thrived during the pandemic. And they continue to need that because we have inflation, we have supply chain shocks, you have maybe we're entering a recession now, so there's price sensitivity. So we need to make real-time adjustments to who do we procure, which suppliers do we procure product from, make sure that we can get that product to stores quickly enough, and at what price can we set it at, to what extent can we pass price increases along to our customers. And again, this is real-time embedded within the various applications that store managers and supply chain managers are using. So that's another organization that's been thriving through real-time analytics powered by Actian.
That's great. And, when you start thinking about the future as well, I mean, maybe you could share some of your insights of what companies may look like over the next couple of years if they really engage with Actian and take advantage of getting to that real-time data analytics for their end users and business decision making.
Yeah, I think in many respects we're kind of in an early mainstream for the kind of real-time and embedded analytics that we've been talking about. Some verticals have been doing this all along, and those that haven't, since 2020, it's definitely been an acceleration. So what we're seeing going forward is this will continue to be mainstream. The design patterns and best practices of how do you embed analytics into applications? How do you ensure data literacy for data consumers that are not themselves analysts? Those best practices are going to continue to mature and improve, and of course we'll implement them and build that out on Avalanche. We're also seeing, if you look at machine learning and AI, no ML model could predict how consumers were going to respond to the pandemic. That was not in the training data, right? But we do see new styles of machine learning where you're continually keeping training data kept up to date with real-time snapshots. So that way you can adjust your models much more quickly, so that Your AI and ML is kept more up to date as well. That's another aspect of real-time analytics. Are your models being kept up to date? And finally, best practices for how do you embed analytics within different devices on the edge, in different form factors for transportation logistics, for example, military and defense, healthcare, medical devices. So there's a whole slew of industries there where you're using operational technologies out in the field that could also benefit from real-time embedded analytics based on data for what's going on in that whole ecosystem and in other parts of the world that are relevant. Um, so, and there's definitely an exciting future here for real-time analytics that I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this has been a great conversation, and I like how Actian is helping organizations not only survive but thrive with real-time analytics, embracing the new normal, and building a culture of responding to the unexpected through data. I think it's a really powerful message, and it seems like it's very easy to get up and running and get started very fast.
So you heard everything I said. Don't have to believe me. You can try it yourself. There's a free trial, 30 days, $500 worth of Avalanche units, and try for yourself the experience. You can upload, get started with your own data, try running your existing workloads, validate for yourself they perform better. So that trial is there, so folks can get started quickly and try it out.
I want to thank you, Dominic, for being my guest, and for everyone who has joined us today. And be sure to check out Actian at actian.com.